Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First on our agenda today is the consent agenda, includes the minutes of April 5th and a few liquor licenses.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, we have Mike Bonnet, project manager for secondary roads. Public hearing will receive public comment on the Dumfries and 240th Street paving project. With that, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Howes, you call the roll, please.
Chairman Wickman.
Aye.
Supervisors Shea. Belt. Groby.
Yes.
And Schultz.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in the public hearing. Is anyone here that wishes to speak either in favor of the project? Mr. Hauser, can I talk you into setting up that podium for me, please?
Sure. You wouldn't have to talk very hard.
What's that, Alvin? What was that?
I say you wouldn't have to talk very hard to
Oh,
talk.
well, thank you so much. Is the phone on?
The phone is on.
All right. Did you wish to?
Yeah.
Come on up. Please give your name and address for the record.
Duke Kilnoski, 15030 Hearthstone Drive.
1530?
15030.
Okay. And your last name was?
Kilnoski.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be recorded on the tape, but just to double check.
So there's some ground that needs or could be split, but planning department says that until a bituminous road is in place, none of that construction can happen or the land be split. And I've heard from their secondary roads department that it is in fact going to happen. But county planning has, there's an ordinance that until that is actually hard surfaced, nothing can happen. And so my question was, if and this is approved, is that correct?
I don't know
Dumfries?
if it's approved yet, is it?
Well, we have to get through this in order to prove it. I mean, I think where he's going is like one, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
So I think because I've been talking with these folks too, and the conversation we've been having is that once this road is contracted, that will allow him and his partner to figure out the splitting and getting the construction side going. There's basically, in order for this to happen, we have to approve after this public hearing to make it actually move forward, so that your department can go do the letting and get the bids and all that. And then from there, I think it has to go back to, once you figure out the bid you want, that has to come back to the board for one more approval. And then I think at that point, it should be their cue to go, barring any other unforeseen things that I'm not really aware of in roads, so I don't know. But that's kind of where it's at. But I mean, here's the
Makes
thing.
sense, yeah, to me.
We're handcuffing ourselves in this because we have potential development. We know that we're gonna pave this road, and you're gonna have potentially two homes that are gonna be there that are of good value, for good tax base anyway. And so, I guess I'm speaking in favor of it, I guess.
Mike, when do you foresee this to be paved?
Well, I believe if everything's accepted, it would be put out for letting here late spring, early summer with, I'm assuming, summer construction or sometime here this year yet, so.
Okay. No, that was just.
Planning and zoning saying you can't sell until then, or you can't build till then?
Can't build.
You can't split the parcel to be able to build
Okay,
his property.
okay.
So the agreement that we've kind of made is that once the contract is awarded to the contractor, then, you know, we know that there's no question that it's a go, which will allow him to not have to wait for the road to physically show up in order for it to happen. I mean, it's just, again, this is one of the situations where our policies, they make sense for a lot of reasons in a lot of ways, but this particular case, it's kind of handcuffing us and restricting the ability to build something that we know is going to
We're
happen
not
regardless.
talking a lot of time though, are we?
I think in their case, it could potentially delay it up to a month or two, depending on how quickly the bids and all that get awarded. I mean, that's the only, I think they're ready to build now, you know, if they could. So I think it really now is just following the process.
Well, I'd really like Matt Wyatt in here to talk about that a little bit.
You know, I
Yeah.
think, I'll schedule Matt for next week's.
I would
board
like
meeting.
that.
You know, we have ordinances in place that, govern how economic development happens, and we certainly don't want to start making changes for any
I don't want to step
specific.
on his toes.
So we'll get that taken care of. We'll keep it posted.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
So is that project due to just the two-family houses, is that what it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's just a time-sensitive thing, I guess. You know,
Sure.
it's, other things have to fall in place before
Right,
you move forward.
okay,
So, yep.
Okay,
okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
anyone else
Thanks,
want to speak in favor? Anyone want to speak opposed? I'll entertain a motion, close public hearing.
So, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second close public hearing. Mr. Hauser, call the roll, please.
Chairman Wickman.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Groby.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Shay.
Aye.
Next up, Mike, you're still up. Decision to approve and authorize the board to sign resolution 31-2022 to award the contract for project number STBD-SWAP-CO78, parent 205, and authorize the county engineer to execute the contract. Mike? Any comments on that?
I have none.
Low bidder on that was Western Engineering for the tune of $2,318,272.10. Glad they got the 10 cents in.
Every little bit helps.
How many bidders were there?
I believe we only had two on this one. Yeah.
I'll be in West.
Henning, I think it was Henningsen.
Jason.
What's the pleasure of the board? Any other discussion for Mike? Anybody? Mr. Hauser, call the roll, please.
Chairman Wickman.
Aye.
Supervisors Groby.
Aye.
Bell. Schultz.
Aye.
And Shay.
Yep. Mike, when will this start?
Letting is July, so we anticipate Western's involvement, obviously, with L66 also, but they've told us that that shouldn't be any problem. There'll be patching involved on the beginning of this project, so I'm sure it'll be late summer, early fall before the actual surfacing goes
Okay.
down. So,
Okay. Mike, thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, help me with your last name. Is it Kane?
Kim.
Kelly.
Yep.
All right, next up, Dana Kim.
Hi.
Pace,
I
Potawatomi.
think most of you know me. My name's Dana Kim. I'm the CEO of PACE, Potawatomi Arts, Culture, and Entertainment. Today, I'm here just to give you a review of all the efforts we've made, especially an overcap of 2021. But ultimately, we're here to make sure, or hopefully get your support once again for financial support. Traditionally, in the last 5 years, you've supported us at $50,000 annually. We want to see if we can get that support renewed going into the future. So PACE, obviously a 501c3, we have a mission to support and strengthen the arts in Council Bluffs and throughout Potawatomi County. We're also here to support, you can go to the next slide. We're also here to support our partner organizations, and we serve sort of as an umbrella for the Hoff Family Arts and Culture Center. So within that Hoff Arts and Culture Center that opened up in February of 2022, then closed 3 weeks later. We have American Midwest Ballet, Chanticleer Community Theater, Canesville Symphony Orchestra, Kitchen Council, which is a food entrepreneur nonprofit, as well as PACE. So along with being the manager of the building and helping make sure all of our partners are successful, we manage Chanticleer, we manage Canesville Symphony Orchestra, as well as we do our own arts and culture programming. So we have a full floor for arts and culture programming. We are an iOS Foundation initiative. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So the reason we exist, and I think most of you know this, we came out of the community. Over 20 community studies were conducted showing that the arts and culture in Council Bluffs was struggling, and if they were a nonprofit arts and culture organization in our county, they had very small staffs, or they didn't have a roof over their head. So 4 out of the 5 really didn't have a roof. One that did have a roof, the roof was crumbling. So now they have a safe home to actually provide the arts for our community. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, if you've never been in the building, I think all of you have, but it's a beautiful facility. We have a gallery, we have a main stage theater, we have a bar, we have a whole floor dedicated to the arts. So classes and events in 2021, we had some initial goals for ourselves, but we did have to modify those slightly because of COVID-19. So the business model and what we were projected to do was have all these big main stage productions. Well, obviously over the last 2 years, we haven't really been able to do that. Not only because the audiences weren't there, we had social distancing, but also some of the cast and crew got sick, so we had to cancel some shows. So we did what we could do, which was arts and culture classes and education. So you'll notice that obviously our adult programming classes, we pretty much tripled the number of classes we provided. Children's programming, the same. We had a goal of 42, but we did 135 classes for kids. We still did our camps. We still did our culinary programming. We did our main stage theater productions, but they're much smaller. So we had smaller cast, or we did smaller cabarets, so it was safer for the folks on stage. Same for the orchestra. I would note in 2021, we didn't actually have our first main stage production until April of 2021. So again, we were just trying to figure out what it looked like over the last year or so, but regardless, we were still able to produce, and we were able to provide amazing quality content and programming for our community. So last year we had over 20,000 visitors to the Hoff Center, and that's still with COVID-19 in place. So we were still able to get lots of people through the door. But we would hope, we want to get to the point where we're closer to 40 to 50,000 people annually through the door. And with our total impact, we had over 33,000 with digital programming and our public art. So we still have some public art pieces out there. But again, during COVID, we had to switch gears. So a lot of that content that we were doing in the classes on the main stage, we captured via video. And so now we have also our YouTube channel and a lot on social media. So we showed a lot on Facebook as well. So we did a lot of videos there. And that's how we measure our total impact. You'll also look at visitors by state. Again, in 2020, we really didn't have data, so this is the first year we've really had data. So we're starting to see where our audiences are coming from. Obviously, Potawatomi County, at over 68% is our primary clientele, with 31% coming from Nebraska, mainly Sarpy and Douglas County. But that shows us that we are truly a regional amenity, and we're able to bring people from Omaha over into the Council Bluffs. They're crossing the river to experience the arts in Council Bluffs, which is a wonderful thing to see. Go ahead. And again, here's some more pictures from our space. Here's one of the ballet rehearsal studios. This is one of our galleries, our gallery up on the 4th floor. There's a quick snapshot of our education floor, and again, that's the culinary arts kitchen. Some of these you might recognize. Keep on scrolling a little bit. You'll notice in this picture we have those murals, the Grant Wood mural pieces that were originally here in the courthouse. They're now permanently housed in the gallery space. You might recognize the gentleman speaking there. That's Dick Miller. He's impersonating Grant Wood. So he has written a play and he's performed that up in the gallery, and that was very well attended. You also see our Canesville Symphony Orchestra. They just had their most recent concert, the KSO Spectacular, this last weekend. we were kind of stunned how many people are starting to show up. We originally had about 110 tickets sold on Friday. When I walked in on Sunday, we almost had a line out the door. So we've sold almost 100 tickets the same day. So we're getting to the point where people are starting to return to the arts. So that's wonderful news for us to see that they're starting to return. They're still not 100% there. We're still not at the numbers what we originally projected when we had the plan for the building, but we're getting closer. What we're also seeing is people are changing how they're purchasing, their buying behaviors. Normally, we would know well in advance how many people were coming. People would make their reservations a week or two out. They're literally waiting till the day of an event to purchase their tickets. But you see the Nutcracker here, that's the ballet. They just did that. That was the first time they were actually able to perform in the theater, was in November of this last year. And then the Music Man, keep on scrolling. We also have wonderful adult programming. Here's one of our culinary arts classes. I believe that day they were making some sort of apple pie. But we work with Caesars Entertainment. They actually help bring in their chefs to help teach our adult classes. We have our children's painting class. We've gotten to the point where our children's classes on Saturdays, we do classes every Saturday. We are selling out and we're overselling the classes just because there is a demand. So that's a wonderful thing to have. We're also working on plein air, so we're going outside of the four walls and doing painting classes outside of the four walls of the building. And then this is one of our kids' Saturday classes, our kid pottery classes. And then when we talk about the county museums, again, this last year, all of them were struggling with COVID as well. So we've just started picking up our visits again with them. Originally, as sort of the vision of working with the Pot County Museums was to help them with a little bit of marketing and then provide archival space for them in our gallery, which we do have space available. They're just not quite ready to bring their stuff to our building yet. So instead, what we're doing, and we're providing education on how to properly save and store their items in their own facility. So the two most recent visits we've made, this was in the last month, was the Pioneer Trail Museum and the Stemple Bird Museum. If you haven't been out to those, they're wonderful facilities that just need a little bit of extra help from us. And then the other thing that we'll also be doing with Stemple Bird Museum here shortly is we're gonna actually do a painting class there out in the county. So we did do our first community impact survey. You probably saw some of that information in the original overview that was sent to you. But I just wanted to pull out some of the great comments that we got on that survey. The last one being, I can't say enough good things about PACE. This is a tremendous asset to the community. In fact, probably one of the most significant positive things to come along in some time. The variety of culture offerings is exceptional and appeal to a wide demographic. All staff encountered have been very friendly and easily to relate to. And of course, the facility is incredible. All who put their money into this are really getting a great return on their investment. So I think that's wonderful to hear from our community. I just wanted again to show you we're busy. We're keeping busy. So again, you'll see we have 3 different shows in the house right now. We have a spring showcase. We're hosting the Iowa Traveling Watercolor Show. Of course, every Friday and Saturday we have our artist studios open and our gallery open. Swing, 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 the ballet just performed the first weekend. KSO performed the second weekend. The orchestra performed this last weekend. If you haven't made it out to Hofworth Fridays, we're becoming the place to be. So we have a food pop-up. So we partner with the Kitchen Council entrepreneurs to give them an opportunity to test their business model and try out their food and food service. We also have live music. So this next 4th Friday, we'll have Turning Gears. We'll also have an adult paint and sip class that night. And then we'll also do a Grant Wood exhibit opening. So we're putting in some new features, including a touchscreen for that Grant Wood exhibit up on the 4th floor. We're doing a cartoonist classes for teens. We're doing youth cooking. We heard a lot in our survey that they wanted more teen programming. So you're seeing some teen programming here. So we're gonna do a teen cooking, teen painting, teen cartoonist on that April 23rd. So it's sort of piloting out teen programming. April 28th, we have Art Plus Dish, which is we pair our Kitchen Council entrepreneurs with some of our artists that are exhibiting up in the gallery. So and we actually set up a big community table up in the gallery. So it's quite the experience where the artist pairs with the chef and they create a meal together. And then again, team painting, and then we're also doing How to Write a Song with Lori Lynn. So lots of diverse programming, ballet, orchestra, classes, gallery, all the things that are encompassed with throughout that building. All right, well, thank you. Do you guys have any questions for me?
How many seats are in your?
Seats in the theater is about 280, perfect size for Council Bluffs. So we know that we're gonna be closer to selling out the house. So it's great energy for the people in the audience and then for the performers on stage. But again, the stage is built as almost like a professional stage. So regardless, it's a great experience for everyone.
Okay, on the children's classes and
Yep.
stuff, you have to pre-sign up?
You do. We have a website that allows them to pre-sign up. We do allow for some walk-ins, but at this point, we're getting so full that
Good.
you may or may not be able to get into the class if you don't pre-register.
Okay. That sounds pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been down there a few times.
Yes,
It's neat,
yeah.
you go see the artists and stuff, and they're very engaged.
They are, yeah. We have some wonderful Pace studio artists.
I
So we
was
have,
pleasantly surprised how neat the whole system is.
yes, yep, absolutely.
Did you say that you're working with our rural museum?
Yep, we're trying to,
What
you
do
know.
you plan to do?
So the most recent ones that we visited were the Stemple and the, I'm gonna forget the name of the other one, but we just went out and visited with them and just had conversations about how to properly maintain their collections. Because originally, they were, original part of the vision was that was part of why we had the archival space up in the gallery, was to allow them to have a space to store some of their treasures. They're not quite ready yet to
They haven't done that
yeah,
yet?
they haven't done that yet. They're, we're sort of new to them, and so they wanna know how can they maintain themselves. So that's what we're doing for them now. So for example, the Stemple Bird Museum that we just went out to a couple
In
weeks
Macedonia.
ago in Macedonia, we're like, okay, so we gave them some guidance. He gave them instructions on possibly even building their own safe space in the facility. And then we talked about some maintenance of the exhibits as well. But we will hopefully in the next month or two, we're also gonna do a class out at the Stemple Bird Museum. So a painting class with them. So we're trying to get them engaged more.
So have you worked with Oakland yet?
Oakland, we met with back in 2021. They're open and closed off and on. We have a good relationship with Gail though, Gail Strickland that helps that facility out there.
She had this position and I have on that board now.
Okay, oh, does she? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to reach out to them and see what they need, but we've done some work with them on social media, so we help them build up their social media page, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll make the motion to approve
I'll second.
the 50,000 for 5 years. I'd like to add one little string to it though. I just would like you to give us kind of an update once a year on,
Sure.
like, just kind of like what you just did here.
Yep.
Well, it just, if you don't mind, a little discussion. I was the beginner of the negotiations back
Yep.
when, what was it, 2017?
Yeah, I'm guessing that was with Judy
Well, with
Yeah.
Pete.
and with Pete. Okay.
Right. And this is the end of our first 5-year agreement, right?
Correct.
And it was all based on the gaming industry being what it is, and that's transitioned a little bit. And we don't know what, I feel comfortable with the next, whatever, 2 or 3 years, and we're gonna be okay with the gaming industry, but I'm not sure what that looks like after that. I just wanna, I guess, put that out to the board that, those gaming dollars get, lessened for us. We're gonna have to make some decisions on the amount of money and where we put that money, I guess.
And I think that was kind of the original indication as well, and we're comfortable with those terms, so.
Right, no, I know.
Yeah.
And I don't know where, I think the same agreement was with the city, was that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. But we do need to go back to the city, just like we are with you guys, to advocate for additional funding.
So do we go a full 5 years?
Well, I
Is
don't
that what
know.
you're
I mean,
asking?
yeah, I probably in, I guess, 2 or 3 years, we would know what our
Would you be comfortable
landscape is.
amending that to a 3rd year, 3 years?
Why don't we just do 3 years with a relook, and is that okay with you?
Lands.
I would
see-
second
See
that.
what that landscape is, I mean, I hate to handcuff, boards and not, know what we're gonna get for gaming. We got
Right.
other, not that yours isn't, probably one of the top ones, but we got other people that we, use that gaming dollars for to
Yeah.
support and such.
Depends on how Nebraska turns out. Casinos.
That's right.
That's a big
That's
deal.
right.
So I
Let's
just
hope
want,
they don't
I
do us
just,
good.
want everybody to know the kind of background on how this thing started with Pete and how we negotiated it out. It's been a wonderful addition to that part of town and,
Yes, it is.
it's, into the community in southwest Iowa, so.
Yeah, we get people that come into the front door and they go, wow, this is really Council Bluffs. Like, this is, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So we should get it in the minutes.
So yeah, let's do 3 year look. So we'll commit to 3 years, that 3rd year, give you an outlook, and we should be able to give you the extra 2.
That sounds great.
depending on
And
where we're at.
3 years helps us a ton too, as far as getting additional support so we can use it for matching. It proves to our donors that we're financially stable.
Yeah,
So you haven't had your meeting with the city yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There was some confusion around the LOI, and so regardless, we have to go up to, in front of the city council and get reapproved,
Okay,
just like we are here.
yeah.
Any other discussion for Dana?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
before you vote on it. You know, when we went to Des Moines,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of those counties, and they still are around the country, doing a lot of public art with local artists.
Yes.
Is any of that on your agenda?
We do have a small line item, but quite frankly, I had to make the decision this year that I want to make sure that the building itself is stable and we have our feet underneath us
Okay.
before we start any big public art
And
projects.
I suppose any artist on their own could probably go
Right.
out and do something, but
We
I
are
didn't know if
gonna-
there was a
Yes.
coordinated effort to do something somewhere.
So, and I
Other-
think when we originally talked about that, we created the infrastructure so that we could probably repeat that every 2 to 3 years. So at least we have the framework. So if you guys remember correctly, we did the Goldfinch Gates on the county bridge. We hope to maybe next year do something again where we pull in some of the county to help us decide where that installation would go.
We got some NACO money for that, didn't we get a grant?
We got some NACO money for that one.
So National Association of Counties gave us a grant.
Yep.
for that.
Nice.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for your
Neat.
support.
Okay,
So the motion is out of gaming, right?
Out of gaming, so 3 years, we'll do a relook. At that time, we'll determine, if we can do the additional 2, and then we'll just come back like we did this time.
Come back every year.
We
pretty
will,
optimistic.
absolutely. It should be interesting too. This year, we're gonna start starting in May, we're gonna do an economic impact study with the state of Iowa and Americans for the Arts. So we're actually gonna start figuring out how much of an economic impact the Art Center is having, as well as we'll be able to estimate tax revenues generated from the visitors to the Art Center. So I think that'll be some great data for us as well.
So is there a collaboration with all the schools in the county then?
Well, the COVID put a kibosh on a lot of that because a
Okay.
lot of them were not doing field trips and they had their own COVID protocols in place, so they couldn't do field trips. We have just put our toe in the water with field trips with the ballet. So the last 2 shows, we've been starting to do field trips with a couple of the local elementary schools. But there is an opportunity for us to grow that program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dana? No. Motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, Grant Anderson, map.
Thank you.
Is
Thank you.
Pete Frank's gonna be on the phone?
I asked Peter, his associate Chelsea, I don't know if they're on, honestly.
Okay. This is the discussion and decision to approve and authorize the chairman to sign change order Number 2, from the CDBG Downtown Rehab Project in Carson, Macedonia. Grant, you're up.
Okay, well, assuming no one's on the call from Frank's Design, I'll say that Cornerstone, the project contractor, has proposed a number of change orders that total $37,970.75. The majority of these are related to this large corner building in Carson. This was the one that late last year had some structural issues, so the whole front facade had to be taken down and reconstructed. So this was all covered at a construction progress meeting in Carson a couple weeks ago. A few things I would say. One, there are more than enough grant funds plus what the property owners still owe to the project to cover this change amount. And 2, none of what's being proposed here will change the project schedule. So everything is still on track to be wrapped up at the end of May. I've done some preliminary numbers now, assuming what kind of action the board takes this morning. Afterward, I'll provide you with an updated budget that includes these changed amounts, but it looks like to complete the project, the total is gonna be $124,602, and of that, it's looking like 33,000, I'll round up to 34,000, we would request to come from the CDBG program. 51,000 would come from cities, and then the remaining property owners would need to contribute 40,000. So I'm rounding up here, and I'll give you a more updated budget once I reconcile all the numbers. Not including the pay request on the next agenda item, it's looking like we would be coming to the county to request fulfilling that 33,000 in the CDBG funds.
And
So,
that's just a pass-through, correct? Is that,
well, we've been asking the county to pay up front the CDBG portion, and then everything else comes from the Iowa cities and the property owners. So,
The answer is yes.
okay.
What are they gonna use the building for? They might know.
yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know.
She knows.
Susan?
Go ahead, Susan.
The dojo's going to return to the main lobby or the main floor of the building. They've been working at the school and anxiously awaiting to get back into the space. That dojo has been in business for over 40-some years. So, and then the upstairs, I believe they're going to have I don't know what the recreational space or some plan for the upstairs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
I don't know if now's the time to ask the question or you want me to ask it in the second part of your presentation today, but am I seeing that this project is about 90% complete now?
That'd be a fair estimate, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I looked at it the other day.
What is the completion date? Do we have one?
May 31.
Awesome. That would really be awesome.
I agree.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board on the
A little.
change order number 2?
I'll approve.
Second.
Any other questions for Grant? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Grant, you're still up. Approve and authorize the chair to sign the pay application for the Carson, Macedonia downtown project. Grant?
Okay, I think this is the 10th pay application for the project. The total is $39,145.61. And of that, we would request that $22,765 come from CDBG. The rest will come from Iowa West cities. I will say that there is currently a balance owed to the county from the CDBG program. I think I'll let you know when I get back to you with my updated numbers, but I think that's somewhere around 33,000. That was submitted just less than a month ago, so I would suspect in the next week, 10 days or so, those funds should be reimbursed to the county.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion. Second, whatever.
Whichever. Pick one.
Any other questions for Grant? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item D, discussion decision on public
Thanks,
comment,
Thanks, man.
public comment policy, and I'll turn that over to Matt Woodward.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Anybody wants this, but we'll pass them out. Okay, so I think it was yesterday, probably around noon, Chairman asked me if we would consider a public comment policy. I think that there have been some requests from citizens to address the board, have been asking to be placed on the regular agenda. A lot of their requests are not really appropriate for agenda inclusion, but that doesn't mean that it's not appropriate for citizens that want to address the board and, air grievances or support or just speak out on issues, that they need to do that. So Chairman Wickman asked me to sort of draft a policy. I tried my best to take a look at public comment policies that various city councils use, school boards, and I sort of cobbled together what I think is a pretty good fair policy based on the guidelines that I was given, which was that they were trying to limit the time of comment to roughly a half hour at the conclusion of the regular agenda. So what I'm asking, and I'll ask any, if you have any questions about the specific policy, I'm happy to address those. If you would like to allow public comments today, you're going to need to address this or adopt this policy as is, because we just don't have time to adapt it and, in the middle of the meeting. Obviously, it's subject to your amendments at any time. I've sort of addressed the time. Indications are that generally that you'll have 2 minutes for people to speak. And that there will be a sign-up sheet, so if you adopt this policy, I'm gonna just stick it over at the side table, that generally you would call speakers in the order in which they sign up, so that there's really no concerns about, are we picking favorites, anything along those lines. That we've got, there'll be a timer, I guess today I'll be the timer. So that's fine. I mean, I don't know that I want to be the stopwatch guy every meeting, but I'm certainly happy to do it today, since I don't think anybody's really planning for it. I think the understanding is that the persons will approach the podium, that they will give their name and address, and then once they begin speaking, that's when their 2 minutes starts. So to say you're going to have 15 speakers per board meeting is probably not accurate, because by the time people transition back and forth, I would anticipate 10. And it could be that you've got items that are really of public concern and a lot of people show up and want to be heard. This policy allows you to sort of adapt on the fly. If you want to, you can either limit speaking to a minute, or you could expand that time however you feel is appropriate. I mean, it's not that you're locked into this. Topics obviously should address matters of concern to the Board of Supervisors. The policy would also ask that people generally try to avoid defamatory and or confidential information that they're giving at a public meeting. Obviously, I've got a section in here on accommodations. We may have, for instance, deaf citizens that would like to address the board. And so this provides a procedure for if we've got somebody that is deaf, as an example, or any other disability that needs an accommodation, that they just need to contact the board office so we can figure out how to accommodate that. I think we also need to accommodate the fact that some people, English is not their primary language. And so there is a portion of this that allows, if somebody brings an interpreter with them to speak, that they get 2 minutes, but they get an extra 2 minutes for their interpreter. So they're basically getting double the time, because that's how long it takes. I've already talked about order of speaking. There was a concern about, do we record this portion of the meeting or not? As you're aware as a board, we're not required to record or stream public open sessions. You are closed sessions, but not open sessions. There's a couple of concerns about recording. I mean, one of which, although we do it for public hearings, make people stand up and state their name and address. Not everybody feels comfortable that they're not going to be trolled or something along those lines when they're giving their name and address. And so by shutting off sort of the stream and the recording, that should hopefully avoid that. Probably the bigger issue is that I'm not saying I have 100% confidence that
the people that normally speak at meetings are not going to say things that are inappropriate, whether it's either confidential or potentially defamatory of someone. This at least, but by us not recording that, we're not responsible for blasting something out. If things get out of control and statements are made that probably shouldn't be, then at least we're not the ones that are streaming it out to the world. And so the board can certainly amend that if you choose. That's my recommendation, at least as you get started, until we sort of see how these are going to go. And then I have provided sort of a brief synopsis paragraph to be read by the board chair at the beginning of the public comment period every time. So it doesn't list everything out because we'd be here forever, but it certainly gives a synopsis. My intent would be going forward that we always have a sign-up sheet sitting at the side table for people to sign up, and that probably we frame, rather than, I don't want to kill trees more than I have to, so we would just frame the policy and have it sitting up in sort of a, frame there that people can read the specific policy, and obviously if anybody wants it, I can always send it to them as well. So that's sort of, I tried to act as quickly as I could within the guidance that I had, so I'm not going to suggest it's a perfect policy, but I think it's a good start.
I read it yesterday and then I reread it this morning, and I think it's a good start.
All right.
I think it's important for people to be able to come
Agreed.
and voice their opinion.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. I think that the timeline thing is kind of I wouldn't say sticking point, but obviously I think you've written it in such a way that, maybe when we do a change it, that maybe the chairman or whoever's sitting in the chairman's seat can kind of set those parameters when the time comes, but.
This is, as Matt mentioned, this is a policy that's gonna get us through today, and if the board decides they wanna change anything, it should be a decision by the board to make those changes, and I'm perfectly fine with that. We had several requests for, public participation on our agenda, and this is a way for us to handle that. And, I think it's a good start, and, we'll move forward from here.
Do we need a motion to?
We do.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Approve the policy.
Is there any other discussion with the board or with Matt?
No, I just, again, reiterate, just thank you for taking the time to shut together, doing the research.
I'll apply.
I'm not saying it's bad, probably could have been better if I had more than an hour to put it together, but I feel like it's okay.
We spent more than an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, David Byer, Jana Lemrick, Human Resources. I'm sorry, David Byer, CIO of IT. Jana Lemrick, Director of Human Resources. Update on the status of the timekeeping project.
Sure. Last August, the board approved the pursuit of the executive time project, which is timekeeping for the entire county. At that time, and still today, we are using multiple timekeeping systems. And this is an effort to merge them all into one timekeeping system that flows into our Tyler financial software nicely, payroll software. So at this time, we are schedule-wise, this is the first week that we are doing what we call pilot testing, where there's about 25 users that are testing the system. They're going to test it for about 4 weeks, which is 2 pay periods. And we'll tweak any things that we're finding and get those things resolved. Then we'll do 2 weeks of testing for the whole county, and then we'll go live. And that's just for the courthouse campus. After that, the roads department will follow up, and then after that, public safety will follow up in September. So we have kind of a 3-phase plan. Right now, we're doing the courthouse group. The clocks are installed where they need to be. New clocks will be installed at the road shops in the sheriff's office here soon as well. If you want to see one of the new clocks, there's one in the auditor's office, one in the recorder's office on this floor. And we're on budget, and we look to be fully live in September once the sheriff's office, 911, court security, and jail are on board. So that's where we're at.
One real quick question for you, David. There was some discussion, please give me where we're at with that. On our roads team, are they gonna be able to get an app on their phone and clock in when they're,
There is a mobile app. It's actually not an application, it's a mobile website, but yes, on their phone, they can view their time off balances and also clock in, clock out, if that's the way they want to handle that.
and then the sheriff's deputies will be the same as them.
They have that ability to, I don't know if that's what their leadership will decide for them, but they have that feature.
Yeah, oh, never mind, I'm not going there. Okay. Any,
I'll make a motion to approve.
there's
It's just an update, there's nothing.
We already approved that budget.
Thanks for approving the update.
Thanks for approving the discussion, yeah.
Thanks. Okay, keep us updated.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, we have Dixie.
Right here.
He's back there.
Assistant Finance and Tax Officer, discussion and decision to approve or disallow the following applications made to the assessor's office. There were 117 homestead exemptions, 27 military, 7 disabled veterans, business property tax credit, there were 16. In family farm, there were 7, all recommended allowed, no disallowances on this, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to. So move. You're up.
Second.
Any other discussion for Dixie? We have a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign.
Thanks, Dixie.
Thank you, guys.
Next up, we have Leanne Gifford and Leanne Gifford, County Attorney, and Penny Ravlin, the assessor. We don't have anyone here from East and West Potawatomi yet, but if we need to bring them in, we will. This is a discussion or decision on allowing or disallowing natural conservation and wildlife areas property tax exemptions pursuant to Iowa Code 427.1, parent 22. Leanne, you're up.
Thank you. Yes, we discussed this some last week and decided we need a little more information. One of the things that I had mentioned was I knew there were other exemptions that the, National Resources District, DNR, I always get confused with how Nebraska puts it. They have a native prairie and wetland exemption that they control, and they also have a land certified as wildlife habitat exemption, which they control. So to the extent that, there's some overlap between those two. The other thing I found out from Penny was both of the people who had submitted the applications for the board to give the exemption also had submitted applications to her for exemptions which she controls. And I believe one of those was granted the exemption, which I think kind of means we wouldn't need to. You can only have one exemption. Part of the reason why I wanted to have the soil and conservation people here was to find out what they feel about it, because they're the ones who have to sign off on these before you guys sign off on them.
I did make contact with West Potawatomi Soil Conservation, and their meeting is tonight.
Okay.
So Brooke Bauer felt uncomfortable coming to this conversation without their approval and kind of guidance.
Okay.
And I believe Scott, I'll let Scott speak to, he spoke with someone on the west.
Terry Gleaves, and they are elected officials, also the soil water conservation. And both of them felt they wanted their boards, but he had said in the past that East had denied by basically not signing the application. Is this something we should have to address every year at the beginning of the year, or is there best practices?
You're supposed to, yes, it probably would be best if annually you decide whether or not you're going to allow the exemption. Like I said, the issue becomes if you allow it and then grant it to someone, I don't know that you can disallow it following that.
You mean that particular property?
Right, that particular property.
And it goes on in perpetuity.
Until there's some change in use, or I would recommend a change of ownership would be enough to look at it again to see if, the use is being changed any.
Is there a different qualification for them filing with you, Penny, than with us?
She's referring to the forest reserve is what the two that came to you, I had forest reserve applications.
Okay.
So there's forest reserve, and Leanne already mentioned the native prairie, the wetlands, and the wildlife habitat that can be processed through my office. The wetlands and the native prairie are approved by the DNR first, and then processed in the assessor's office.
Okay.
So those are options that exist.
Okay.
I did
Under
listen last.
state code?
Yes.
Okay.
I did listen last week, and Justin, we were talking about what was the Parkwood acres? Those are forest reserves.
Okay.
The 3 parcels have forest reserves.
Okay.
So these we have 2 applications, is that accurate?
Yes.
Are those
So-
class residential? I don't mean to interrupt, because I think you have to be classified agricultural in order for
I
this.
did not look at that.
So I'm not even sure they qualify. I know for sure the Cecil Noel was classified residential.
Okay.
So my understanding, how I read it, but your attorney can advise you, that you have to set aside the agricultural land acres, which implies it needs to be classed ag.
Oh, okay.
And then we have to establish the amount of acres each year that we were going to.
Like the minimum, right?
No,
Maximum
maximum.
total acres to
To allow.
be in the exemption.
So, let's just hypothetically say we said we're gonna allow, not that I'm suggesting, just so we're all understanding, 200 acres. So the following year, can we expand that
I
or
think there's
lessen
a
it?
total limit on the number of acres that you can
Is
have.
it a percentage of the,
It says 3,000
each year?
in each county, yes,
Or for the
which
whole?
this exemption shall apply. Is that that's for the entire county?
I believe.
That's what the application, that's what the code says, yeah.
That's, yeah.
Or 3,000 acres in each county.
I mean, by us just, we basically washing our hands of a responsibility if we do this. More or less, right? The board wouldn't be involved in this process anymore. They'd have to go through the state channels to get there.
If you decided not to allow this exemption, yes, then there would be the other avenues that they could
My only
go.
question, I guess, come back is why did county supervisors have the responsibility in the first place? And
I
why-
have no idea.
Let's put it on Penny.
It's just another option. But I bet when we had our first one in 2019 maybe, that you guys got an application, I think Scott at the time asked me to see if other counties, and there is a decent article out there in 2010, Cherokee County had this. So you might want to go research that article about the pros and the cons.
All right.
The public that were for it, the public that were against it, the shifting of the burden versus the conservation. It's a good article. I think it's in the Chronicle Times.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But none of us, well, typically, I don't know that any of us that are board of supervisors are conservation experts, and that's why I think it's somewhat goes through the process of the local soil water conservation districts to confirm that that is truly conservation that's happening and such.
And maybe they would want to reach out to, of course, it was a long time ago, but Cherokee County's conservation, they were for it. Property owners weren't necessarily for it, on the other side. But maybe their soil and conservation has some tips.
Okay, I don't think that we are going to make I don't know whatever the board decides, but I don't know if we're ready to make a call on anything today. As I do look at this, Penny, that's a great point you made. It says in here that, a percent of the acres assessed as ag land. So you're correct. I would, by looking at this briefly, that would exempt, a 2 or 3 acre family farm residential.
I think it would exclude the 2 that you actually have.
Once, the West Potawatomi Soil Conservation meeting is tonight, I will be attending that, so, I'll bring that up for discussion, and, I think, Scott, you're on the east side, right?
Yeah.
Keep the conversation open with them, and we'll
Yep.
kind of figure out which way we need to go on this, but I think that, the point you made that needs to be assessed as ag is very, very important. That takes some of the, responsibility of this board away from us as far as, granting any kind of an, approval for an exemption. I would prefer, this is just Tim Whitford speaking personally, that stays in your office. That's, you're a lot more trained on,
Well, and actually on the Forest Reserve, County Conservation helps us, so
Do they?
they actually assist us,
but
yep.
we don't have anything to do with it.
No, they're processed through our
That's
office,
the way
but
you
Mark's
like it.
office
That's the
goes
way you
out.
like it, right?
That's what you like.
Yes.
Yes.
What does this do with some of the land that has trees and exempts land?
So like, for example, that, one of those applications, because he's already been notified that was approved, he got a $50,000 reduction on his assessment from the forested area.
Okay. What if they sell trees off of it?
They cannot sell it for economic gain. There's, same thing, there's no economic gain off of what you put into Forest Reserve.
Okay. Thank you.
Forest Reserve stays, you have to go, I guess, look at it every 5 years or something, or somebody goes and looks at it, or?
Conservation.
We have looked at it since I've been the assessor, but there's no routine, there's no requirement. Just like if you were to approve this, who's gonna check those?
Right.
There's nothing in the code that says they shall be, should be.
And that's what, soil water conservation people said, there's, they're federal and state employees, and they said, we really don't have the resources right now to go out, investigate, confirm, and.
It's kind of what the article from Cherokee County, I think that some of the residents alluded to, things were getting granted that maybe didn't necessarily, yeah.
Does the DNR look?
No, soil and conservation for the one
it.
you're talking about.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, are there other ones that previous boards have approved in the past that you're aware of?
No, I don't think you've ever had the resolution here that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No.
I'm not asking like us, I'm just saying. Like,
Oh, but I did ask, I did pull the,
I didn't know about, I mean, something like that is what I'm looking for.
I pulled the Southwest District of Assessors, which is 11 adjacent counties here, and there's Ottoman County has it. Cass County is a new assessor, she wasn't sure if they had it or not, but the rest of them do not.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm good.
We'll, I think we'll table this for, obviously for today, and then, we'll take another, look at it maybe in a week or two or whenever we get the information back from our East and West Soil Conservation people.
Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Penny.
Yep, have a good day.
Next up on our agenda is public comment. I'm just going to read a real quick statement, then we'll get started with that. The board will allow up to 30 minutes for comments from the public. The board will call each speakers to the podium in the order in which they have signed up on the form provided. Each speaker is limited to no more than 2 minutes for speaking, must speak from the podium, and must first state his or her name and address for the record. Comments should be directed to the board as a whole and should refrain from personal attacks or from addressing individual employees or citizens. Comments should also be limited to one topic. Detailed information about the public comment policy is available upon request. Mr. Wilbur, do we have anybody that signed up?
We have one thing I neglected to bring up, so I just want, it's on